Hello and welcome to today's Delta Credit Tip. So you walk into the local bank with your wad of cash in your hand thinking, I'm going to go open me a checking account today. Well, you get in there and they say, not today. What just happened? Stay tuned, we'll fill you in on today's Delta Credit Tip. Hello and welcome back to today's Delta Credit Tip. So you try to get this bank account the other day and they just turned you away. Pocket full of cash, ready to go. What just happened? Well, in case you didn't know, there are more than just 3 credit bureaus. There are hundreds of credit bureaus, and each credit bureau measures and collects and disseminates different types of information. And a couple of those bureaus, like Chexsystems, spelled with an X by the way, and Telechecks, these are bureaus specifically for banks. And one of them probably has something derogatory about you in their report. So the thing about Chexsystems and Telechecks is that they're really an interbank communication system, okay? And they measure how you and others handle their accounts. And so when you go to open up an account at a bank, if they've reported something about you, it could make that process a little difficult, okay? And the thing to remember about Chexsystems and Telechecks is that they are definitively credit reporting agencies. Now, they like to be called banking reporting agencies because they're really talking about exclusively what you did at different banks, but really they're a credit reporting agency, and as such, they behave very much the same. So the content that they're going to have in that report about you are things like unpaid checks, unpaid balances, unpaid fees, like the overdraft fees, things like that, any kind of involuntary closure of your account, and if they think that you've been involved in some sort of fraud, right? Or if you've had too many accounts that were labeled as fraud. They're also going to be measuring inquiries. Okay, so if you go to 5 or 6 different banks all at once trying to open up accounts, they're going to put that in Chexsystems, and then when you go to the next bank, they're going to pull that report and know something's kind of weird going on and prevent you from opening that account. Okay, so what do? Right? Because the way the Chexsystems and the Telechecks work is that you really won't even know anything about it until you go open up a bank. And if you've been with the same bank for a long time, you may not even realize something is in there. Okay? So the first thing you're going to want to recognize is that just like the credit bureaus, there's a score, right? It ranges anywhere from 100 to 899 with at least with Chexsystems, and they're going to report all those things that we just talked about. But when it comes to finding out that information, and when it comes to disputing that information, when it comes to them validating that information, they got to follow the rules just like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Okay? So, a couple of other similarities that these banking reporting agencies have. They still follow the same dispute process, right? They still have to respond to you within 30 days if you mail in your dispute. They have to mail you a free credit report at least once a year, okay? They are still governed by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, just like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, all right? And if you pay one of the creditors, one of the banks that happen to be reporting either that unpaid balance or whatever the case may be, they don't have to delete the account just because you ask. That is part of the negotiation process that you're going to want to do with the bank that you owe the money to. Remember, all credit bureaus are depository institutions, and not to deposit cash, but to deposit information, right? So the bureaus can't make the decision as to whether or not something comes off your credit report. It's the furnisher of that information. So before you go and start paying everybody off, you're going to definitely want to make sure that you've negotiated that deletion from Chexsystems with that bank that you settled things up with. Now, one of the biggest differences between Chexsystems and the other three bureaus, and I'm not quite sure why they do this, but they only report for 5 years. Okay, whereas the bureaus, as you recall from our other videos, can report you for up to 7 years. Okay, so that kind of leaves you two choices, right? You can either A, handle the account that was in default, or B, wait 6 years and it'll eventually fall off that report. Okay, your Chexsystems or Telechecks report. Now, if you need something in the interim, there are banks that do not use Chexsystems. Okay, some of the banks right off the top of my head, there's TD Ameribank, Capital One, Wells Fargo, of course, they don't check Chexsystems. Now, they will pull your credit, right, from the other three bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. So even that may keep you from being able to open the account if you've got other things going on, right? But it won't be the Telechecks or it won't be the Chexsystems report that prevents you from being able to open that account. Okay. Also, there are a lot of banks out there that will give you what's called second chance accounts. Most what they call super regional banks. These are your banks that are really not nationwide or worldwide. They're just very popular in a region of the United States where they can kind of make their decisions locally as to what they do when situations like this come up. For those of you in the South, that's places like Fifth Third Bank, places like Regions Bank, but not your Bank of Americas and your city banks, those nationwide or global banks. They can make those decisions kind of locally, and they can say, okay, well, we'll give you a second chance account. We'll give you a checking account, but you're not going to get a debit card, or they'll limit the debit card, or they'll have some kind of funky thing going on to protect their exposure from you making more mistakes or potentially committing fraud. But you'll at least be able to open the account, get your direct deposit, and do all those other perks that you can get with owning a checking account. So, hope this information helps. If so, give us that thumbs up. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button below. Don't forget the bell so that every Thursday, as we come out with more information to help you in your credit restoration process, you get it right out of the gate. And hopefully this will help you make a choice, make a change. Delta.